This is Kenya, with a tropical coastline, ancient civilizations, and unique cultures. Kenya's varied landscapes host extraordinary wildlife, vibrant cities, and mountaintop towns home to the best athletes on the planet. This is Kenya from above. Kenya, East Africa, a country of myriad landscapes covering over 580,000 square kilometers. This aerial journey across Kenya begins in the west, high in the mountains, traveling east across the country's vast savanna, finally arriving at the turquoise waters of the Indian Ocean. The first stop is here, in the Kenyan highlands, in the heart of Africa's Great Rift Valley. This is one of the geological wonders of the world. Named by British explorer John Walter Gregory in the 1890s. This gigantic tear in the Earth's crust formed over millions of years as two tectonic plates separated, splitting Africa in two. The Great Rift Valley stretches for 7,000 kilometers, reaching several thousand meters deep and up to 100 kilometers wide. Perched on the edge of this immense rift, amongst the highest peaks and plateaus, is the mountaintop town of Iten. On the surface, Iten may seem like any other African town. But this cool, high-altitude community is renowned for producing Kenya's best athletes and is a true mecca for the world's top runners. Amos Kimutai was born and raised in Iten.
In Iten, you can't say even like walk a distance of even like a kilometer without finding a champion. From Olympic champion, world champion, and also record breakers. So that's why Iten is known as the home of champions.
Amos is hoping to become the next in the long line of champions that have emerged from Iten's perfect training conditions. Taking on the famous spiraling climbs on the edge of town is one of the secrets to its runners' success.
Iten produces best athletes because of the altitude. It's 3,000 to 800 meters above sea level, and also the weather is favorable for athletes to train.
The higher Amos ascends, the thinner the air becomes. To combat the lack of oxygen, his body produces more red blood cells to move oxygen to his muscles. This high-altitude training may only enhance performance by 1 to 2%. But in the world of elite running, it can be the difference between losing and winning. Many athletes train here, hoping to become world champions. But for Amos, this will always be his home.
After becoming successful, yeah, for sure, I'll stay in it. You just have the great view of the Great Rift Valley. It's very beautiful. It gives you inspiration.
Here in the Kenyan highlands, the people have been shaped by the landscape. As the Great Rift Valley carves its way 200 kilometers to the southeast, it has created a very different habitat. Lake Elementita, one of the most important breeding sites for flamingos on the continent. Over 1 million of these iconic birds feed in Elementita and the other Great Rift Valley lakes. The glistening water is deceptive. It contains a potent mix of saline and alkaline, a cocktail that gives birth to toxic algae blooms that are deadly to most. But it is in fact the algae that attract the flamingos. Over millions of years, they've evolved to consume the toxic food source with no ill effect. A special dense filter in the flamingo's bills sieves water to retain the tiny organisms they feed on. With few other species able to digest Elementita's algae, they have little competition. The only side effect is their distinctive color. Algae is loaded with a chemical rich in a pinkish pigment. The more the birds feast, the more vibrant they become. Once the algae levels dip, they ascend en masse. A true spectacle of the natural world. The Great Rift Valley lakes remain a flamingo paradise. But 45 kilometers south of Lake Elementita, another of Kenya's water features has long since disappeared. This deep, awe-inspiring gorge is all that remains of a powerful river that fed a mighty lake. In place of its once sparkling waters is Hell's Gate National Park. Its towering cliffs and stark rock formations make this an adventurer's playground like no other. Fisher's Tower. Formed from semi-molten rock forced to the surface where it cooled and solidified, leaving this 25-meter-high obelisk. Today, it's a rock climbing destination for adventurers from all over the world. Spanning over 60 square kilometers, Hell's Gate National Park is also a wildlife hotspot. Covered in lush vegetation, it's a haven for herbivores. The secret to the green foliage is fertile, rich volcanic soil. and the geological activity that created it can still be seen today. Belching plumes of smoke do not indicate an imminent eruption, but humans harnessing the immense energy of the Great Rift Valley. Hell's Gate provides the perfect location for Kenya's state-of-the-art geothermal power station. It converts heat from the earth into clean energy. With an expansion underway, it's hoped that the plant will eventually provide 27% of the country's electricity. A key part of Kenya's mission is to have 100% renewable energy by 2030. Evidence of Kenya's volcanic past is plain to see. South of Hell's Gate lies a giant bourne of fire. The extinct volcano of Mount Longonot. Formed within the last 400,000 years, it's one of the mightiest Rift Valley volcanoes. Thought to have last erupted in the 1860s. Now a thick forest takes root where lava once spewed. Beyond Longonot to the east, evidence of the rich volcanic soil can be seen for kilometers. Here, the Rift Valley is a verdant paradise, making the highlands of Kenya perfect for farming. This is one of the world's most renowned tea and coffee growing regions. The high altitude and relatively low temperatures mean these crops grow slowly, developing a greater flavor before harvesting. Making the produce here world famous. Kenya now exports over 650,000 tons of tea and coffee per year. But there is also another blooming business. Year-round sunshine means flowers flourish here. Over 150,000 tons are harvested annually. It's the country's second largest agricultural earner, bringing in over 440 million euros a year and employing around 150,000 people, most of whom are women from the local communities, like farm manager Miriam.
The key important thing that we have seen in the flower industry is job opportunity for women, which has given them a very strong economic power. My job makes me proud. In African culture, raising to a level of a farm manager to a woman is not an easy thing. So even when I walk loud and tell somebody I'm a farm manager, they ask, a woman? And I say, oh, so this is not normal. I think I'm in the right direction, where women can raise to the levels they want.
When Miriam was growing up, job opportunities for women were few and far between. But Kenya's recent flower boom has changed that. Miriam now manages a team of over 100 people.
I'm waking up every morning, going to work, and supporting the family economically. I have a daughter. When she looks at me, she tells me that, Mom, I'm going far. Because what a man can do, a woman can do better. So I think I am a motivator to her.
The flowers are all harvested by hand, providing employment for the local community, but also ensuring a high-quality bloom for the final customer, thousands of kilometers away in Europe. Surrounded by Kenya's rich agricultural landscape and wildest natural habitats is the capital city, Nairobi. Founded in 1899 by the British, it is now home to 4 million people, one of the most populous cities in East Africa, and a global center of industry and technology. Nairobi is rapidly developing into a silicon savanna, with entrepreneurs and tech giants basing themselves here. But downtown, in the shadow of shiny skyscrapers, is Kibera, Africa's largest informal settlement. Covering an area of just over 2 square kilometers, it's home to around 250,000 people. Overcrowded housing, poor infrastructure, and extreme poverty are a fact of life here. Half of Kibera's population is unemployed. For those lucky enough to find work, wages rarely exceed 80 cents a day. And this is just one of the hundreds of such settlements surrounding Nairobi. Kibera has a bustling community. Home to all of Kenya's ethnic groups. There is a vibrant food scene reflecting its cultural mix, along with street-side barbers and shoe shops. There is also a thriving art scene. Makeshift buildings have been transformed into graffiti masterpieces. Kibera has a collective of young artists who are using street art to make money, while highlighting vital issues. Mutuya is at the forefront of this creative movement.
For me, art, I started when I was in my primary level, and I can say it's the passion and the talent that drove me.
Mutuya is able to make a living from commissions, but to him, his art means much more than just money.
Painting in the slum as a graffiti artist, it's because I wanted to spread awareness about different issues that we are facing. Because I feel the slum is one of the places that it's neglected by the government.
Kibera has become a canvas for Mutuya and his fellow artists to raise awareness to a whole host of issues.
In this environment, mostly we use art as a weapon. We also use it as a tool to express our emotions. I hope my art will reach out to the people going through these issues like drug abuse, police brutality. I hope that they can come out and talk about it.
While much of Mutuya's finished pieces convey important messages, his craft also attracts a captivated audience. And most importantly, introduces the next generation to the power of art.
Every year what I do, I take a total number of 15 young kids and 10 adults. I mentor them through art, showing them how to portray messages. I teach them how to paint. And then we go interact with the community, come up with concepts, and then paint together.
This is his way of giving back.
My art is for the community, because the community has taken care of me, so I only do art to take care of it. Yeah.
Kibera may be a difficult place to live, but Matuya represents Kenya's hope for a better and more colourful future. It's not just people that struggle in Nairobi. The city's railways spent decades in disrepair. First built by the British in 1901, thousands of people use them every day. Now there's a hope that railways could play a bigger role across Africa, transporting cargo. But the continent's existing rail network is poor, with just 20% of goods being moved by train. And after countless decades of use, many of Nairobi's engines have been retired to this rusting graveyard. But things are changing. A state-of-the-art high-speed line, just south of the city, opened in 2017. Complete with an impressive new station. Built and financed by the Chinese, with over 3.5 billion euros of loans. This hefty price tag has pushed public debt to over 55% of GDP. Despite this, it's a symbol of modernity for Kenya. It's all part of a grand vision by the Chinese, a continuous rail network connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. "220 kilometers south of Nairobi lies the Amboseli grasslands, the jewel in Kenya's crown. As the sun begins to peak over the horizon, there are breathtaking panoramas waiting to be seen. From above, Amboseli is one of the world's premier ballooning destinations. Golden vistas stretch out in all directions. The leisurely pace and silent approach make ballooning one of the best ways to view the waking wildlife. Home to the greatest density of mammals on Earth, Amboseli offers a safari like no other. Flying before the heat of the midday sun is the best time to see wildlife grazing. Against one of the Earth's most epic backdrops. Mount Kilimanjaro. This ancient landmark has a powerful influence on Amboseli. The park's vast grasslands are fueled by Kilimanjaro's permanent ice cap. Water from its glacier flows down the slopes and into the ground, rising through the porous volcanic soil, and finally feeding Amboseli's grasses. It's this bountiful vegetation that attracts such a huge variety of herbivores. From zebra and wildebeest to giraffes and baboons. It's a paradise for wildlife, with many migrating here every year. But right now, it hasn't rained for months. Even Amboseli's grasses are drying up. And water is in short supply. The only place to find the precious resource is in sporadic swamps created by Kilimanjaro's ice cap. They are an oasis in the dry season, a lifeline to many. Yet even these swamps become scarce when the rains fail to come. But there is one wild resident that knows exactly where to find them. The saying, "Elephants never forget," is not far from the truth. With large temporal lobes, the area of the brain dedicated to memory, the giants are able to remember the exact location of waterholes that are drought-resistant. This vital knowledge is passed down from the herd's matriarchs, from generation to generation. Amboseli's elephants often make this journey from neighboring Tsavo Park. This migrational corridor is home to some of Kenya's most well-studied elephants, including the great tuskers. Named after their mighty ivory tusks that reach almost to the ground. Each giant tooth can weigh up to 50 kilograms. These awe-inspiring individuals are genetically rare, and the demand for ivory has made them rarer still. It's thought that as few as 20 remain in the world. And with the illegal trade still ever present, their future is in peril. It's not just the tuskers. Tens of thousands of elephants are lost every year to poachers. But Kenya's elephants are not alone in this battle for survival. They have guardians watching over them. Craig Miller works for the Big Life Foundation, an organization dedicated to protecting Amboseli's elephants.
Big Life is a conservation organization that works in southeastern Kenya. Our main focus is wildlife security and anti-poaching.
To protect the elephants, first, Craig must find them. In 392 square kilometers of grassland, the best way to do this is to take to the skies.
Daily routine kind of varies hugely, which is one of the exciting parts of the job. Normally by 7:30 I'm up in the air, going to deal with a situation if there is one, or trying to fit in a surveillance patrol. I always wanted to be involved in conservation when I was very, very young. I started here 8 years ago now, and hope I'll be doing it forever.
From the air, Craig can track down Amboseli's elephants.
Bravo Lima, Charlie Mike.
Once located, he relays their coordinates to Popote, an expert ranger.
Kazi yangu kama ranger sana sana, kitu ya kwanza ni patrol, day patrol and night patrol. Pia ranger ako kiongozi ya community, sababu chochote kifanyika kuhusu wanyama, community direct wanapiga simu kwa ranger na tunaenda huko, tunaokoa kama kuna conflicts, tunasuluhisha. Na pia ranger kazi yake kubwa ni kuchunga wanyama pori na msitu pia.
With Popote's extensive knowledge of the area and Craig's eyes in the sky, the team can monitor Amboseli's elephants as they migrate massive distances and create safe elephant corridors stretching across Kenya and into Tanzania. As rangers can stay in close contact with the herd, poaching activity is declining, allowing the elephants to live their nomadic lifestyle as nature intended.
Pre-2012, we were losing 30 plus elephants a year to poaching. Post-2016, less than 5. And for the last 3 years, we haven't lost a single one.
The odds have been stacked against Africa's elephants. But with the Big Life Foundation watching over them, there is a future for Kenya's wandering giants. And with the migrational corridor now in place, the next big tusker could rise from one of Amboseli's herds. As the dry season lingers on, it's not just the animals of Amboseli who must seek out water. This region is also home to the Maasai, pastoral nomads whose lifestyle has barely changed for centuries. One Maasai village is set in an ancient volcanic area of Kenya. For half the year, the nearby rivers run dry. During this time, the village relies on wells dotted around the landscape. For the Maasai women like Lucy, it's their job to ensure there is a supply of clean water at home for cooking and drinking. Setting off in the morning, they have an arduous journey ahead of them. As water sources closest to the village have dried up, it can take hours of hiking to reach the next spot. Getting to the water is just half the battle. They'll have to hike all the way back. Water is not the only factor that dictates the Maasai's movements. Livestock is their main source of income. It's crucial to keep their animals alive. So if they migrate to find greener pastures, the village must follow. Life on the move is tough, but for Maasai herders like Dixon, his animals come first.
Ore nkishu ondare onkera naa ore ninye yiok irmaasai nikinyor nena tokitin pii. Kake kineputua taa apa kenyorri. Neeku lasima naa pee eeta enkiti mion torkuashi tenker. Amu yiolo naa ajo ore tenakata nena naa ninye taa account ang'. Mikiata nkulie account natii idie naisudoro kuna nkishu ontare onken.
The Maasai have mastered the art of herding during the testing dry season. Skills that must be passed down through the generations.
Ore enking'urata oonkishu naa papa apa nanu laitubulua naiteng'en enking'urata oonkishu. Amu ore venye narikito naa sinanu olalai arikisho ming'ura nkishu tosero tende naa nejia ake sinanu aikunaki. Nejia ilo kebunoi sinanu aitubulu apa aikunu aaku aiteng'ena matayiolo aing'ura nkishu ampaka naa nalus aiteng'en ilainei.
The Maasai are one of the last great warrior cultures. But right now, their biggest battle is climate change. Extended dry seasons could spell disaster for their cattle. But despite these threats, Lucy and her family are determined to keep their culture alive. The quest for water dictates life for many Kenyans. And travelling towards the coast near the small settlement of Marafa, it is water that has dramatically transformed the landscape. Here, the flat plains of eastern Kenya abruptly drop to the Marafa Canyon. With the sun beaming down on this natural depression, its rocks heat up like an oven, inspiring the ominous nickname of Hell's Kitchen. The canyon itself is a geological quirk, formed from a pocket of sandstone that has eroded faster than the surrounding hard rock. And its striking red and white colors have given rise to some compelling local folklore. The legend tells of a rich family who once lived in Marafa. They were said to be so indulgent and wasteful, they bathed themselves in the valuable milk of their cows. God became angry with their excesses and decided to punish them, sinking the family and their homestead down into the earth. The white and red sandstone marks where the blood of the family and the milk of their cattle stained the canyon walls. It may just be folklore, but now many see the striking landscape as a reminder of the perils of a materialistic lifestyle. Southeast of this dramatic canyon, towards the Indian Ocean, Kenya's Great Plains make way for the vast forest of Arabuko-Sokoke. Blanketing the land with 420 square kilometers of trees, this is the largest intact coastal forest in East Africa. The immense swathe of woodland seems untouched by people. But as far back as the 13th century, a civilization thrived here. This ancient Swahili city, known as Gedi, was a sophisticated metropolis, home to 2,500 inhabitants, complete with palaces, mosques, and towering city walls. Early explorers found these Arabic inscriptions, bearing the date of 1399, but little else was known about the ruined city, which led to some historians downplaying the importance of Gedi. However, further archaeological research unearthed an advanced infrastructure seldom seen anywhere else in Africa. Built from coral, Gedi reached its peak in the 16th century. Houses were laid out in a grid system like the modern cities of today, with many of the ancient abodes kitted out with running water and flushing toilets. To add to the mystery, archaeologists have found Ming Chinese vases, Venetian glass, Indian lamps, and Spanish scissors, which suggests that Gedi was also open to the world of trade. Yet this Swahili metropolis was abandoned in the 17th century. There are many theories as to why. Perhaps people fled as their wells ran dry. But with no written evidence, Gedi remains one of Kenya's great mysteries. Adjacent to the ruins, this coastline is now more of a destination for tourists than ancient traders. Ships laden with treasure may be a thing of the past, but every year a precious cargo is still left on these beaches. For millennia, sea turtles have come to Kenya and Africa's coasts to lay their eggs. Each nest contains around 100 hatchlings. They must all crawl their way to the sea, but as newborn green turtles are only around 5 centimeters long, that's easier said than done. Once they reach the water, the little hatchlings will swim off to the open ocean, where they'll feed on jellyfish, sponges, and algae. When they become older, they'll move further inshore and become herbivores, feeding mainly on seagrass. Five of the world's 7 sea turtle species are attracted to Kenya's coast by warm water carried from Southeast Asia by the Indian Ocean's swirling current. Creating a tranquil home for the aquatic reptiles. But in recent years, the ocean has started bringing something else. Kenya's once pristine beaches are now littered with plastic, carried on the currents from as far away as China. As it gets broken down, it finds its way into the ocean and is consumed by sea life. Plastics and other negative human impacts mean that all of Kenya's turtle species are endangered or critically endangered. Trends indicate that in the next 50 years, marine turtles in eastern Kenya may disappear altogether. But the people of Watamu are determined not to let plastic pollution ruin their beautiful coastline or its wildlife. Every week, teams comb the beaches for plastic, carefully sorting it by color and type. Matilda has spent her entire life in Watamu and is one of the longest-serving members of the beach clean team.
I grew up here, and when I was a little girl, when we went to the beaches were clean. But compared to now, we have so many rubbish out there. We start cleaning the beach because we like going to the beach to swim with our children. In our group, beach cleaning is good for us because when we go to the beach in the morning, we also get vitamin D from the sun. When we are out there, it's like fun.
And that's not all. Matilda and the team have found a way to make money from the rubbish found on the beach.
From the flip-flops we collect from the beach, we make so many things like earrings, bangles, and necklaces. We are getting cash out of trash. Get blessing from Mother Nature. When you take care of Mother Nature, it's a blessing.
Pollution from plastic waste is one of the biggest threats facing the world's oceans today. The work of Matilda and the team is making a difference.
Cleaning the beach, it must come out of your heart. You feel good. You feel back to life. Yeah.
In the heart of Africa, Kenya's people are driven by a deep love of this unique country. From the future champions of its mountains to the Nairobi street artists helping to incite positive change, and the Maasai, battling to keep their culture alive. Others strive for economic independence, while the country's most precious wildlife is guarded by the dedicated few. Each has their own story, but all are working for a better future in the vast continent of Africa.